Welcome, everyone. We are live here for episode 27 of Horror Metal Cast. I am here with my co-host, Joseph, the amazing. And tonight we have a awesome special guest, Mike Sabatini, founding member of the metal band Attacker. Welcome to our show, Mike.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you and young Joseph.
Young Joseph.
Welcome.
I like that. I like that. I'm gonna start calling him Young Joseph from now on. That'll be his new stage name. Thank you for that.
You guys are very, very flattering. Thank you very much, Mike. It's a pleasure to see you. I'm very happy that you came and chose to join Steve and I on our little show here.
Absolutely. A lot of fun.
We're looking forward to this, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that love to be able to see you. This is coming from one drummer to another. It's a lot different of a forum when we're not behind a drum kit. You know what I mean? And you get to, you're looking for stuff to hit because there's nothing in front of you, but there's people. So it's the same premise without drums, and it's nice that you're actually able to do it. It's good. Good to see you.
Pleasure to be here, sir.
Awesome. So, Mike, tell for anyone tuning in that may or may not be familiar with your work, tell our audience about you.
Well, first of all, if you're not familiar with our work, I will beat you because I don't know where you've been. We've been around long enough, and if you're a metal person, you should know. Right. But I basically I started. I guess I'll give you my little history. I started playing drums in 1982. I started late. I was 19 years old. I wasn't like most people start when they're kids. I started late. Probably about a year later, I wound up meeting a guitar player in college, and that's how the whole Attacker thing kind of got going. And we, put the band together, did some demos, got signed to Metal Blade Records, and took off on our little musical journey, I guess you could say.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
A long musical journey.
There's so much stuff to go into. That's why I got to kind of shorten it. It would take forever to go through the list of things and all that stuff. So we'll leave that as the little bio for now.
Oh, all right. Yeah, nice. Keep it nice and short and sweet. Exactly. So we've already established how long you've been in the business. And I guess my first question that I'd like to ask you is, how do you, in your experience over the last couple of decades, being in Attacker and just being on the metal scene, how have you seen the scene evolve? And what do you think of the state of metal today?
Well, I would say from what it was in the 80s, obviously there was a lot of clubs. That was the heyday of it. So literally you could play every night of the week and there'd be people at the clubs. That was, I guess it was our era. And that's just, people weren't afraid to go out because they had to work the next day. I think as time went on, obviously the 90s metal slowed down a little bit with the whole grunge thing and just kind of getting away from metal. But in the early 2000s or even late 90s, it started picking up. There was a renewed interest in a lot of the old school stuff like that we do. And, I would say, because of that resurgence, we got to go to Europe for the first time in 2004. We've been there many times since. So really, there was a nostalgia for the old bands, and that's what got us back to doing what we're doing, and getting to, I guess, experience these things. But today, it's tough because the live music scene, most of the people are older. If you're into what we're doing, it's a lot of older people, and half of them, you tell them, hey, wait, what time are you going on? Oh, we're going on at midnight. Midnight. We didn't leave the house till midnight back in the day. So, you have that. There are a lot of young people that kind of are finding the older bands or liking, there is a new scene of, they call it like the new wave of true heavy metal, like a lot of the, the Maiden Priest kind of, circle of music, but newer bands. So they're kind of kickstarting it. A lot of them are doing full touring. These bands are out on tours, but ultimately it's never going to be back to what it was back in the old days, because I just think the whole like information generation, like the fact that we're sitting here chatting on this, it's not the same. Kids today, there's not as many of them taking up instruments. You see like chains of instrument stores talking about bankruptcy and stuff because it's just not as prevalent, the live music thing. Kids are people. Joe will tell you, we used to love when we were kids. You'd go buy an album and you couldn't wait to look at the cover, read the lyrics, read the credits.
Yeah.
Today it's you know, let me download one song from an album. That's it. People don't buy albums, they don't listen to albums. It's a different thing. So
yeah, it's a lot of streaming.
Yeah,
if you wanted to find out about an album back then, like you had to go to a record store or a gig to find out, you know, and the only way you would find out information on a band would be in one of the rags, the local rags, one of the metal mags, or from the band themselves at a gig.
Yeah, so or even the overseas magazines, because I used to go into Greenwich Village, in New York, right? Kerrang, Metal Forces. Yeah, you're right. There was, you know, very limited ways. I mean, really, we used to go to the record stores in the village, and you'd look through the, you know, the piles of records, and if you saw a cover that looked cool, you'd flip it over, go, hey, this is cool, I'll buy it. I bought so much stuff, and I'm sure, like I said, I've heard many people say that. Just by something that had cool artwork that caught your eye, you bought it because of that.
Oh yeah, I could definitely understand that, because even in the writing community, if you have a book cover that is atrocious, you could have the best book in the world and no one will read it if your cover art sucks. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, let me say one thing. Our cover art for our first album, we actually we had a painting done by somebody here, a New York artist. We sent it to the label. Something happened where we heard different stories that something happened to the cover. But anyway, the label took it upon themselves to have an artist out there do like an airbrush version of it with the same subject matter, but airbrushed. We didn't see it until we got the copies of the albums. And put it this way, it's been listed in one of the 100 worst heavy metal album covers of all time. And
it was not that bad.
Just as an interesting point,
it's a classic.
And well, you know what it is? A lot of the album covers back then have become so bad they're good kind of things that you know, people enjoy them. Again, it's nostalgia. You remember the cover. It may be crap, but it brings you back to when you were, you know, younger. Anyway. Probably about 2 months ago, I get a message on the Attacker Facebook page from the artist who did the cover, a guy named Ken Contact. I've never had any conversation or contact with the guy ever before. He wrote to me and said the same thing. Hey, I just saw that cover I did for you guys. It was listed as one of the worst album covers ever. And I was like, great distinction. You know, we're both laughing back and forth, but yeah, but the thing, even when you saw a not great cover. Again, we're young kids, you know, we're not looking for Van Gogh art or, you know, Rembrandt or anything.
Right.
So literally you look at something that's got a monster on the cover. It looks cool. Oh, cool. I picked this up and take it. And that's how we found a lot of bands, you know, just by that. And, you know, because again, there was you had a local newspaper, like he said, which local bands, but you would have to buy the European magazines to really find out about the metal that's really going on, you know. That was
the metal was coming out of Europe at that point. I mean, anything solid like Creator was, you know, coming into play, and then you had, I remember Apocalyptic Rage, the first Hellhammer record that came out. The cover art was like just the weirdest looking shit ever, and I picked it up, and that's what drew me to it. You know, it was like a fucking demon like spiking somebody in the eye with some shit. It was like, whoa, look at that, that's cool. Let's check it out.
Well, you know, what's funny too is the first thing we ever did recorded was that Metal Massacre 5 compilation on Metal.
Yes.
On that album was the very first Overkill song ever published. Fate's Warning, Omen, Hellhammer, Metal Church.
Yes.
Same thing. I remember hearing that first Hellhammer song, and I don't remember what song it was. Oh, it's called Crucifixion.
Crucifixion, right?
It literally sounded like they were falling on their instruments.
That was horrible. They were the worst musicians. The only other band that was worse than that at that point would have been Sodom. You know, and I mean, it was just. They were the coolest looking fucking things you ever saw. And
exactly. And you know who else was on that album too? Same thing, Voivod. And
Voivod,
and they pretty much in the beginning were really terrible too.
Yeah.
I was like, how the hell is this stuff even on? Ultimately, all those bands went on to be bigger than us, you know?
Right. Well, you look at it and you look at the cover. Piggy? Who's Piggy? You know, and then you plug the fucking thing in, you're like, oh, okay. That's Piggy, you know, and you learn and you listen and you start to realize that there is some really cool shit out there.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah.
You know, but you're right. It was very subjective back in the day. Back then, if bands weren't liked, you were ostracized immediately. There was, you know, that was it. Your shit. I remember in Necrophile, we got hate mail from Germany. Somebody actually took the time to burn papyrus in the oven to have the burnt edges on it and say you fucking suck and like red. It was, I mean,
that's actually really flattering.
It was. They took the time. I mean, they took the time and postage to send it all the way over. That we sucked. I was like, hey, kudos to you. Thank
Dude,
you so
that's
much.
like the biggest compliment.
Yeah, because they actually took the time to even write the letter. That's another interesting point. The fact that back in the day, when you think about now, you communicate with people in Europe on, emails, Facebook, whatever. I remember back then getting fan letters or from people that liked the band from all over the world. You literally had to handwrite a letter out and it took weeks to get to them, weeks to get back. So all your communication was so friggin', convoluted. It was like ridiculous, but
it took like 8 weeks later. You got like 9 albums and 4 kids later, and you get the mail back. You know what I mean? The letter comes back.
Exactly.
But thank you very much.
But it's funny. We actually had to actually write a letter. Put stamps on it and mail it to another country. Well,
the kids today in the bands, they don't know. This is how most bands practice. Believe it or not, they have live internet, rehearsals. And it's crazy, man. The shit that's out there, the technology that the kids utilize today. I mean, of course, we're going to look at it and go, well, we didn't have that. No, we didn't have it back in our day, but we did okay. I mean, we had our things and our way of communicating.
Yeah.
What do you find better now than it was then? Do you find anything better in the scene today than it was back in the day?
Probably, honestly, just the communication part, that you have such an easier channel. Like I said, music in general, it's a harder sell now. Label-wise, the internet, I'm sure everybody feels the same way. It's a blessing and a curse because it opened up this whole world of everything, but it really destroyed the music business.
Oh, completely.
Everybody can get anything for free, upload. As soon as you put your album out, it's up on some Russian download site.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it because what are you going to do? Get lawyers in Europe? So really, to me, I prefer the old days. I mean, even technologically, I miss the days where when you wanted to get somebody, if you called their house and they didn't pick up, you had to go to their house and see them.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, that's exactly.
We're at a point now where even with text messages, you don't even have to respond. You could give somebody a thumbs up or a friggin' ha-ha on a text message.
And that's it, and you're done.
We're getting to the point where it's like there's no communication.
Oh, you and I, Mikey and I talk. We talk. We talk. We get a cup of coffee between us. We'll talk for 3 days. And I love
that's awesome. See, I'm definitely in the technology generation because as soon as you said you could give somebody a thumbs up, I was like,
you're only 17, right? 17,
yeah, I'm only 17.
Flattering.
I am in my 30s, sir. Thank you very much.
We had music,
Hey, I used to go to CD stores, and I know what Blockbuster Video is. So,
all right, you're good.
Well, we had records. I mean, back in the day, we had records. I remember when CDs. Did the label print CDs for you? Your first CDs, were they printed by the label for you, or
no? Well, the first 2 albums were only on cassette and vinyl.
Yeah, right.
I'm saying CDs were coming out at the time. But I think it was bigger labels doing it. Independent labels were a little slower to get on that boat. They to jump in that. Yeah, but I think our second album wound up being done on CD by the label, but the label had gotten bought out by somebody else, and we didn't even know it was put out on CD. I happened to see it in a store one day.
Right.
But back then, it was pretty much vinyl and cassette. That's it. That's all it was.
Right. Yeah. Vinyl and cassette was big back then. I mean, the only way you could get it back then was import. God bless you. Was an import, or tape trading was big back then too.
That's actually Adrian in the chat just brought up tape trading and pen pals.
Yeah, Adrian. Absolutely, Adrian. He knows. That was the way it was, Mike, right? I mean, you had a cassette. If you had a bootleg of something you didn't want a lot of people to see, that was unmarked, wrapped up in fucking regular writing paper with a note scribbled across it, shoved in an envelope, and sent out to you. You had no idea what the hell was in that, and when you got it, you push play, and holy shit, it's exactly what you thought it was. It's Slayer live in like fucking Bucharest or some shit.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that was it, because there was no other way to really get stuff.
Right.
It was cool because everybody didn't mind sharing their music. You know what I mean? No matter what.
That's
even
cool.
I remember selling our demos we used to sell them for like $2, And the funny thing is, I used to literally go down to like a CVS or whatever stores were around Rite Aid, and I would buy a pack of like the 3 cheapest cassette tapes they had, and make the copies. And I still get people that say, I think it was called Sotron or something like that. The cassette.
Yes, Sotron. I remember those. I used them.
People still have them. People still have the copies of it, and they'll be talking about it on Facebook, saying, "Yeah, man, those were like the cheapest cassettes." And I was like, "Hey, dude, we were broke. It was like we're lucky we had the a double cassette deck to make a copy on."
Are you the drummer from that band Centron? I think that's who I saw. You know what I mean? Because that was the label that was on the.
Oh yeah, I would just handwrite Attacker and the song title.
Yeah, that was huge. That was big back then. That's how we did it.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember in Nemesis walking into clubs to audition we had to bring our own radio and shit. Put it on the counter. The promoter sat in front of you and drank a beer with you and looked right at you. And if you thought you sucked, he'd just be like, you pack your fucking radio up, you walk out, with your tail between your legs.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
the way it was.
That's how you did it.
Crazy. Yeah, crazy.
So let me ask, since we're talking about like tapes and recording and stuff like that, Joe filled me in that you actually do own and run a recording studio.
Yes.
So, Mike, I'm very curious, Mike, to see how do you feel that the technology, A, helps you, or B, hurts your business?
Well, the thing, truthfully, up until probably, I guess it was the early 90s, pretty much all recording, if it was digital, it was still with the really expensive, it was still like a tape, it would still be on tape, but digital, digital heads that made the sound. Mm-hmm. Everything in that world was really expensive. Like to buy a 24-track tape machine, you're talking $50,000, $75,000. It was big money. In the early 90s, the company called Alesis, or Alesis, however you pronounce it, they came out with these recorders that they were individual units, and each one did 8 tracks of song of recording, and they used VHS tapes, like video tapes. Yeah. But you remember they had stuff called Super VHS?
Right. Well? Yeah. I still have a pile of them. Yeah.
Well, they used to use SVHS tapes. That was like the first foray where people at home could afford to buy something to record on, and actually do it. And with those machines, you can buy one. There were 8, like I said, 8 tracks on each one. You can buy multiple ones and link them together. And you literally could have bought a ton of them and had like 120 something tracks, and they would all run in sync. I actually had 2 of them in the early 90s. That's when I first started doing recording and doing demos for people.
Okay,
so really, the technology has definitely helped get more people into it. But now we're at the point where everybody's using computer-based recording, like Pro Tools and all that. Now the issue with that is, I always say that, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something.
Absolutely. Because
not everybody's good at it. Right. Even back in the 80s, we would go to a studio to do a demo, and it was a full-blown studio, big giant recording console, all that. We would finish it and take it home, and it sounded like shit. And
you're playing bongos.
Yeah, it's just crap. And I wonder now, like, hey man, I can go with my setup, do stuff, and I can do is good a quality or better than we've ever had. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, Bobby says that the one album we did, The Unknown, it was the 4th Attacker album. We did that all in our studio. Now we've worked with several other name people stuff. He said that's the best sounding recording that the band has, and I did it myself. So really, if you have the know-how and you take the time to learn, it's a combination of that and your ears. For some reason, it really comes down to what the individual hears. Because and I'm not talking about hearing how well you hear. Some people they don't know how to make things sound good. They don't know what to do on the mixing board or whatever to make all the pieces fit.
Right.
The guitars, the bass, everything has to have its own space. This way you hear it. And a lot of times you hear crappy recordings, and it just sounds like a pile of everything's piled on top of each other.
Right, because you have like you said, everything's compartmentalized, right? You have your guitar, you got your bass, you got your drum tracks, and your vocal tracks.
Yep.
the thing to me with a good recording would have cohesion between the 4 or 5 things together, not just because I've been on albums and I've heard albums that have had the most phenomenal fucking guitar sound ever,
Right.
like the most epic fucking, and the drums sound like I'm in the backseat of a car fucking with a bongo and a Coke can. You know what I mean? It's like, what the fuck? What happened there? But
well, I will tell you one thing real quick, Joe. Drums, the thing is, guitars already have their sound. You just put a microphone. Drums are acoustic instruments are a little different, and drums are the hardest thing because when you put a mic on drums, 9 times out of 10, you ever notice when you first do drums, they sound like Tupperware, like the bumper, they just don't sound good. That's because you have to learn the frequencies that affect each drum and which ones you don't add frequencies. It's what you take out. You take out certain mid-range frequencies, and your kick drum or your toms will go from sounding like I said, like Tupperware, to having a nice, round, warm sound. The kind of sound that your ear hears when you hit it. So that's why you can have a great guitar sound, because it's almost built in already. You just put the mic in front of it, and for 9 times out of 10, it will sound decent. Whereas drums, it's how the drums are tuned, how they're mic'd, and then the work you do to them to get rid of the offending frequencies.
You know what? You got me all excited now. I'm going to come record with you probably tomorrow morning now, because that sounds awesome.
What a very educational show this has become.
It is. Well, Mike
I'm learning so much.
Mike is actually a professional, and he absolutely does know sound very well. And the records that he's talking about, I've had the privilege of owning and listening to. So I understand what he means. And you know what? It is difficult. One of the worst things for a band to have happen is to have great music and to have it represented poorly in a recording.
Yeah,
because people do, and they are very subjective to that. Now, I'm going to skip tracks a little bit over to part of that question. I'm going to form part of a question out of that. And the question, Mike, would be, out of all those recordings that you have, not sonically, but musically, what is your favorite Attacker album?
I will say that I could narrow down favorites to the first 2 and then the last 2 in the EP. I kind of think the 3rd album, Soul Taker, and the 4th album, The Unknown. I kind of think, the 3rd album, Soul Taker, we hadn't done an album since the 80s. And we did that in 2000. We started recording that, I think, in 2003. So a lot of time had passed. So we were kind of finding our legs again. Like, nobody really written that kind of stuff in a long time. The 4th album, The Unknown, was a little more cohesive and, a better album than Soul Taker. Obviously, like I said, production-wise, that's, I think, the best one we've done recording-wise. And proud of that. But I would say I couldn't narrow it down to one album. I would say that the first 2 and then the last several we've done are my favorites, musically. Nostalgia-wise, the first album, obviously, to me, is the favorite in nostalgia, because the first time you get to record an album, the excitement level, we got signed, we got to do an album on a good label, that whole thing in itself would probably be the reason I would lean more towards that one, overall, because again, it was, that was like the most exciting time of my life, pretty much, doing that.
That's awesome. Now, as far as so that's your favorite for song or for sound. And what do you think was the most fun and the most enjoyable album to record?
Tell you the truth, probably the second album that we did, The Second Coming, because we went up New York State. We recorded with Alex Perialis, who he just did our last EP. But he was also back in the 80s. He was the guy who did Anthrax, Testament, Overkill.
That's awesome.
He actually worked, I think he co-engineered the first Metallica record. So working with him was a great experience. And it was cool because we did the recording so quick that he actually took us out water skiing up on a lake in New York.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was just such a cool vibe. Because it was our first time going away to record. We're away, not far from home, but, we're staying at a cool hotel. We're recording with a big producer, and also the co-engineer was Rob Hunter from Raven, because he had left.
Oh, Wacko.
Yeah, Wacko. He was the co-engineer with Alex. And that was cool because, again, we got to do this crazy thing, hear stories about the other, all the other bands he worked with, and get to go out water skiing, and just like that. That was just a cool experience overall. I think we went hiking too. We went hiking up in some mountain with like streams and stuff. It was cool. It was definitely a fun time.
That does sound like a lot of fun. Damn.
That was.
Now I do have a question from the chat. This question comes from Laura, and she would like to know, do you have any advice for drummers starting out at the ripe old age of 37 and are female?
Actually, if you had advice, if it was advice for a kid, I would say the first thing is stay in school and still do music. But yes, I started at 19, so really, I was already an adult. You're an adult. Just practice and do it because you love it. That's it. If you love doing it, put as much time in as you feel you need to play. I would say play along with songs you like. Everybody starts out as a cover, doing covers, and that helps you form your own style. Because whatever you like, that'll kind of seep into whatever you do on your own. But starting late doesn't matter. Just apply yourself. If you have quite, if you're not sure of something, reach out to somebody that can kind of give you advice on it as well.
I'm laughing, Mike, because I understand who this is. I know. I'm gonna dump it out on the table. Actually, this is one of my drum students, and I've told her quite a lot about you. So I'm very happy that she came up and listening. She was, hello, Laura. And Mike is absolutely one of the most formidable metal drummers out there. A class act and a great guy. So listen to what this guy has to say. Just try not to wear muddy boots in the house. We'll talk about that later, Mike. We'll get to, you know what I'm talking about. We'll get to that. That's the end of the show.
But yeah, bottom line is the fact that whether you're starting it as a kid or an adult, music is like such a great thing to be part of. It brings so much joy. So you know what? The fact that you're starting it at 37, more power to you. Just do it and have a great time. Love it. Because, like I said, it's really about making you happy. And if music makes you happy and it brings something out in you, that's the best feeling.
That's amazing. And I really, I agree with that 100%. Because it's I hear a lot of people always wanting to start something. I want to do something. I want to do this. Oh, I want to write a book. I want to record something. I want to do whatever. And I always say, like, well, then do it. Like, what's the problem?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You can do anything you want at any time. I mean, you see 90-year-old people jumping out of planes because they wanted to skydive.
Fuck yeah, dude. Right. Or like 80-year-old women getting their PhDs just because they fucking felt like it. And I think that's so admirable. Exactly. If you want to do something, go do it. Who gives a shit how old you are? It doesn't fucking matter.
It's about your own personal journey. If you want to achieve it, achieve it.
Absolutely.
The feeling doesn't dissipate. It doesn't matter if you play in front of 3,000 or 3,000 people. That feeling that you get, if you truly love what you're doing, doesn't dissipate or change because of mass size. I could play by myself in the room, just a drum kit, and still get that.
I heard that about you. You play with yourself a lot.
Yeah, thank you. I knew. All right, Mike. I wasn't going to take it there, but all right, now we're going to go there, and I'm going to bring up the ledge story at the end of the night. That's it. When the Leave It on the Ledge is coming out later.
There we go. Okay, so that Leave It on the Ledge thing.
We'll get to that. We brought that up once before. Bobby was on the show. But so now I'm gonna ask this question because I also asked Bobby the question. So now it's your turn. What funny or weird tour stories do you have? Oh God!
Like, what's your favorite one?
I mean, honestly,
or worst one, whatever.
Probably ties into what Joe said, because here's the thing. Before Bobby was in the band, when we first went to Europe in 2004, the bathrooms in Europe are kind of weird.
Yeah, they're weird.
Because American toilets, it's just a hole with the water in it. In Europe, it's kind of like when you look down in it, there's like a little slope, and there literally is a ledge, and then the water is a small hole in the back of the bowl.
A shelf, if you will.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like I know it's disgusting, but
kind of like this. plateau.
If you take a crap, it kind of sits on this piece of porcelain until you flush the water, then it flushes it down. And that's where we originated the whole ledge thing. We started singing living on the ledge. We were singing dumping on the ledge.
But leave it on the ledge. You can't stop it. Oh,
to me, it's like in Europe, they want to examine it to make sure it's healthy before they flush it.
God, yeah, it's got to smell awesome.
Because first of all, the reason why you have water is because it kind of diffuses some of the aroma. When it hits, you do it and leave it there, and it sits there, and it's like stewing, and then you got to flush it. So it's like,
and you got to sit there and hang out with it until it's gone.
in all honesty, for the most part, those are just. We always have such a great time when we went away anyway. There really isn't one, like I said, there really isn't one story because there's just been so many funny conversations and crazy stuff that goes on. But
I actually had a privilege to be with you guys in Germany when I was at Blood Feast and Attacker went over together. And you know what, Mike? Honestly, it wasn't that it was the only time we did it. It was just the shit that happened that made it fucking funny. The boot prints in the house, the dirt, the mud. You remember the mud prints that walked up the fucking stairs and nobody did it?
Yeah, but if you also remember that Bobby, he fell in the mud.
He did a full face plant in the mud. We saw the Gordons walk. We're in the tent. We're in the signing booth, right? We're doing autographs, and there's two guys in suits, like rubber, fireman suits, with Bobby in the middle, walking him to somewhere. The entire front of Bobby was covered in mud. I was like,
"Oh no.
Is that Bobby?" I was like, yeah.
And the thing was, we were at the booth to do our signing, to have signing sessions for the bands, and nobody could find him. Somebody found him, and on his way back to us is when he fell in the mud. And he had to go to one of the washing stations they have.
They took him. They took him and hosed him. They hosed him down.
Yeah, hosed him down, and then he had to come and sign albums and stuff like that. But that place was a mess. It rained, and
the mud pit.
People are literally walking in their shoes are coming off in the mud because of this.
Oh yeah, I've had that happen to me in because New Orleans is kind of like a fishbowl, and when it rains, all the water just kind of sits there, and it always seems to be very wet and rainy in October when I go, and I have lost a couple of shoes at Voodoo Fest 2 different years that I went. I've lost shoes, but then I smartened up and I got rain boots, and so now I wear rain boots now.
Okay, and I was gonna say you smartened up and brought extra shoes.
Yes, exactly.
I remember the mud. I remember how deep the mud was there, and it was crazy. What was your favorite show that you've done over the years? What place? What show?
It's I guess there probably would be like 1 or 2. I guess one of the favorite ones was probably the first time we went to Europe in 2004, because obviously that was a whole new experience going to another continent to play.
Yeah.
The coolest thing was when we went to this show, we go over there. Now we don't know what to expect. We figure, okay, we're a band from 30 years ago. Is anybody even going to remember us? And it wound up being like the complete opposite. So that experience. Just getting to live that, go on the plane with your friends and play the show, and that was one. I would say that show, and let me think of like probably. And I tell you what, probably that Headbangers open air show that we did together. I think that playing wise for Attacker, that was one of the best shows that we ever played. Like you know how it is when you play a show, you come off. It was okay, but we could have did this better.
No, you're on fire.
That show, everybody was firing on all cylinders, and was probably the best performance we might have ever done.
You guys were on fire. I was sitting right on the right side of the stage for it, and I remember.
You were okay too.
Well, yeah, it was okay. It was all right. It was okay. But I remember you and I were in the backstage, and do you remember the tacos? They had tacos, right? We were eating tacos. Mike and I were talking backstage, eating tacos, and Mike was about to go on. He walked away. and Raven walks up, and I'm standing in mud, just before you guys went on. It started raining lightly, a little bit of rain, a little bit of mud. I'm standing watching the water come down, eating a taco, and I look up and I'm looking at Raven, and they're right there and they're eating tacos. And I'm like, hey, and they're like, hey, and I'm like, it's a living legend with me eating a taco in a mud pit, and this is crazy. And my friend Mike just went that way, and John, and Annie M, and you and the Scarecrow, and you're the Tin Man. You know what I mean? It's like fucking. When did I land in Oz? We're watching Loudness. Loudness is coming up. Hello, how you doing? They're coming past you with their toy
exactly.
here.
That was cool. It was a good time.
Well, you know what it is, Mike? For me personally, I was around friends. I was with friends and family. We got to bunk in the same house together, the house of ill reputes. And
it was a Hobbit house.
Yeah.
It looked like a Hobbit cottage. It had the thatched roof with the grass on it.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome, though. That's cute.
It was actually cool.
The show itself was amazing. I was privileged enough to be on the side of the stage for you guys. I still have video shot from the side of the stage.
I think, you showed me some the one time.
Yeah, I totally bootlegged you, and I'm going to get millions for it later, okay? But I'll give you 10%, okay? They were phenomenal.
On that note, so what do you think? Do you have like a disaster story for like the absolute fucking worst show ever?
I got to be honest with you. We really, the only time we ever had maybe something go wrong like that was one time back in the 80s. Something happened with our original guitar player, Jim Mooney's guitar, and he couldn't get it in tune, and he ran off stage to try to fix it.
Oh, he just left.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, the song we were starting, he started it. So it would be like, bow, bow, and what happened was we went, bow, bow, and it was silence. And we're all looking at each other. Hit the second one, bow, bow. And our bass player, Lou goes, he wasn't supposed to, but that was probably like the worst thing when he ran off stage, and I don't think he came back on. Like, I think he must have felt humiliated or something, and he never came back on stage. That was really the only time I think that something happened bad, because we've been fortunate that the shows pretty much have always been good. Things went well. We practiced. I mean, back in the 80s, we used to rehearse 5 nights a week. So if we didn't know the songs, there was a problem. Now it's the opposite. We just played Saturday night in Massachusetts. And the last time we played as a band was in April up in Rochester, New York. So we haven't rehearsed at all. We just played that show, played this show. We got 2 more shows coming up in a week and a half, and one in June. We're not rehearsing for that either. So we went from being a band that rehearsed 5 nights a week to just go over it at home. But I'll tell you what, I think not rehearsing is actually better for us because we've been playing better than ever. So
yeah, I think that's a tell, and how it's almost like a measure of success, and like how all the band members are in sync to a point where you don't require a rehash of the same shit over and over to be good.
And let me tell you something, rehashing it, you go to rehearsals and it's like, again, we got to do this song. Right. We're at a point now where, it's like, why go rehearse now when we're doing all these shows? We're going to be playing the same songs depending on the length of the show. We're not adding anything that we haven't done. So it'll give everybody their time to enjoy life, show up at the show, and then play, and that's it. Go home.
I want to bring up one quick point.
Oh, go ahead.
Something that happened on that trip to Germany in the very beginning, the first night that we were in Germany. Mike, I want to see if you remember. It was a snafu at the airport. Something happened, and
the guitars.
There you go. That was it.
What happened?
The guitar's misplaced for Attacker.
It was. I think it was your guys and us, right? Both of us had stuff missing.
It was Tom. Tom's bass.
And I think it might have been somebody's guitar, maybe Mike or John.
Both. It was Mike, John's guitar, and Tom's bass.
Right. Yeah, and it was funny. The airline said that we had connecting flights. The airline said, "Oh, well, what happened was the plane you connected to has a smaller hole, so they didn't fit." I said, so
you just fucking left them?
Yeah, I left them out. Yeah, those don't fit, man. We're gonna leave them right here. Okay, we'll get them next week.
Yeah, so we had to like talk to everybody and their mother to have them. They had to find them first, and they delivered them like, wasn't it like early in the morning or something, or late at night?
It was 3. I was at the table with Bobby eating schnicken at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it was like the middle of the night, and they found.
They bang on the door, and all of a sudden they open the door. Yeah, your guitars are here. Yeah.
What? Now that we talk about this stuff, probably because it doesn't affect me, I don't remember all this stuff.
Right, we don't give a shit. We hit things.
I'll give you another guitar story. We went to play in Pittsburgh, and it was like a quick flight from Newark in Jersey here to Pittsburgh. It's like 45-minute flight. We get there, we get to the hotel. Mike, we got to the airport. Mike opens up his guitar to check it. They must have threw his guitar like a missile. The headstock, the tip of the guitar broke through the case. The whole neck snapped.
What the fuck?
And my God.
We only had that one guitar. We had to go to Guitar Center the next day in Pittsburgh to buy a guitar. The airline, we had to file a whole complaint. The airline actually took the guitar, sent it back to the manufacturer, and had the whole guitar rebuilt. It took months. But he got the guitar back like brand new, with a brand new case, a brand new, like the kind of case that you can't go through, like a hard shell case. A 45-minute flight. It wasn't like we flew 8 hours to Europe or something. The shortest flight ever, and they must have threw it. They had to have, like I said, launched it like a missile.
Somebody's back there with a sledgehammer. Yeah, I'll fix this thing. Don't worry.
Yeah, right. Either they threw it like a missile, or somebody was like, "I don't fucking like these guys. I'm tossing this guitar."
Well, you see all kinds of crazy stuff in the business. There's so many gigs and so many people and so much stuff. The thing that I walk away with the most, Mike, and I have the pleasure of talking to you about this quite a bit,
right?
Is the love of the people that you play for, and the amount of respect and love that you get for what you do. To me, it's worth more than money, and I'm pretty sure it's that way for you as well. Correct?
No, you know what? You actually hit the nail on the head, because I've done a lot of interviews, and they ask us what's your favorite part of playing, and I said truthfully, it's the people we met. Because again, you got people. The thing that's funny is you meet these people, and they say to you, "I'm your fan," and after you've seen them for like a bunch of times in Europe, we've been back. And I'm like, you're not my fan, you're my friend.
Right.
Like that. But that's the truth of the matter. And an interesting point is, we live in a world where, countries are defined by their governments, and I've been overseas and had people say, where are you from? I'm like, oh, I'm American. I don't like Americans. And I'm like, well, did you ever meet one before? No. And that's the thing, is you talk to people and you start to realize that people are good. It's the government that are the ones who cause the problems. That's why people revolt against their governments, and once you get to know people and you realize that they're just like us, they get up, they go to work, they have families, they want to enjoy their lives, have the best they can, and that's it. And that's all it is. But it's all the crap you see, that America against Russia, America against the Middle East, and whatever, there's many Middle Eastern people that love metal, that like all our bands and stuff, and it's like, it's political. All that political stuff is what gets in the way. The people friggin', are the best thing about it.
That's awesome.
I totally agree. And you know what? I'm as a musician, I can attest to that. That music, especially in metal, in the metal world, it absolutely transcends government. It transcends religion. It transcends everything. It has nothing to do with that. And the people that come to you at a show, you don't look at them for their dress or the way they go to church or what their government, none of that even comes into play. And it's so pure. And to me, it was like the biggest, warmest, fuzziest love fest ever. Right? Pretty good way.
Exactly. Because it's just everybody coming together for the common reason of music. The fact is that we produced the music. They enjoyed it. We would be producing it without them. So
thank you. Simplest form, Mike. That is correct, in my opinion. I mean, again, this is all conjecture on my part and opinion, but I agree with that 1,000%. I think that is absolutely what it should be about. And for the last, I don't know, you tell me, 30 years, you've been putting it out on the table for people, and I've been watching you, and I have been a fan, and I am absolutely a friend. and I've had the privilege of being on planes and eating schnicken and in mud pits and doing all kinds of.
We've been on planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah, man, we've done a couple of things together, and it's been one hell of a ride. You know what I mean?
Well, like I said, and again, even talking about you saying about the people we meet, the fans or whatever. It's also about the musicians we meet, because you and I know each other. How many other people wouldn't we all know if it wasn't for music? Even though we're not in the same band, there's still that big thing of like blanket of camaraderie amongst the whole community.
Well, that's the thing. We didn't both bands per se didn't know each other. In Germany, everybody wasn't personally knowing each other, and they put us in a house together. And guess what? You're going to get to know each other now because you're all going to stay in this house for 3-4 days together. And it was like the biggest. It was like it never. It should have been that way from jump. It was just so natural.
There was
everybody was
so uncomfortableness of anything.
No.
We're all just everybody wake up in the morning. Hey, good morning. Let's have coffee. Blah blah blah.
Right. I mean, we just enjoyed it, and
sure.
There's a lot of bands out there that do the same thing. When we played with Deceased, they were the same way. They were just amazing people. All these bands, Attacker, the guys in Attacker are amazing. I'm telling you, I know these guys. They're okay in my book. They're all right. They're good guys over there. We know Exciter, when I played in Japan with Exciter. You don't realize they're people, and they want the same thing you want. They want to be with you, and you want to be with them. And it really, for me, I mean, I'm asking you, does that pay the bills enough for you to still be doing what you're doing?
Does it pay? It never paid the bills, but
I'm not talking about money, Mike. I'm talking about the love and respect for the people. Is that enough for you?
Oh, yeah. That's what it's always been all about. It's never been about a monetary thing. It's the fact that, number one, we love being musicians. I love playing music. Music makes me feel good. And the fact that we could put out music that makes other people feel good, because I've talked to people in Europe, and I've said things about, like there was a time where back, we did the first 2 albums, and then that was it. We didn't play for a long time with Attacker. And I was like, yeah, I didn't think anybody, mattered, that the music really mattered to anybody. And they're like, no. You don't understand what your music meant to me. That's the kind of thing that blows me away, because you really don't know the impact you have on people's lives or whatever by what you did. We only see our side of it. We don't get to see what they got.
I think that's amazing. People, when you make an impact on someone's life like that, like you never know just how much people need music in their lives.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, there's one guy in Belgium who he's the one who helped us. We just did a show in France back last September. He's got our logo on his on his forearm. Mm-hmm. The back of his truck, he's got the whole logo. And this is
sick.
Around in Belgium. And he always talked to me about drumming, like he loves my style of drumming. And the funny thing is, I don't think I have a style. Like when I play, I see my influences, but yet I took my influences, I guess, and my own little thing. And he's like, yeah, I love the style of how you do this, this, and this. So that's kind of cool too, because you learn that, you do have a style, or what you do, is a little bit unique in its own sense. We never have the self sense of that. I don't think, we just go play and hope we did good,
Well,
everybody else sees the whole other side of it.
If you look at, like, I'm a fan of Nico McBrain, let's say, from Iron Maiden. Right. I know his style. The reason I know his style is because I've listened to, 30,000 albums with his tracks on it. And you start to understand the way the guy's mind works a little bit. You start to see his style. We don't see it as musicians. We don't see it because we're one-to-one basis. We're playing a song. We're playing a song. We're playing a song. We're playing a song. We don't put that all into context, because whatever we're doing at that particular time is what matters most. That one song that you're playing at that time matters more than anything else. So in my eyes, I don't see it, and I'm pretty sure you don't see it either that way.
I bet you he don't see it either.
Yeah, but see, he don't know. He don't, but
He probably plays and does the same thing we do. He probably knows what he does. He kind of got from somebody else, from one of his influences, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To me, it's not, honestly, it's not about, everything has been done. Anything musically has been done already 1,000 times over, right?
No.
It's more.
I did that one fill one time, I think, that nobody
That there was that one time back in '88
in Bandcamp.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Oh,
so we're getting down to the wire here, and I do have one quick question. Just because you had brought it up earlier about not having to rehash things and rehearse things over and over again, and I would assume that helps you to keep from being burnt out, on songs or playing live and things like that. So my question for you is, as bands and that have been around since the 80s and the 90s, they get older. Some bands burn out and some don't. So I can give you an example. A couple years ago, I saw Slayer live. I'd never seen them live before. So I was like, man, I wonder if they're just going to be like, meh. They were fucking awesome.
Yeah.
They were probably just as awesome in 16 or 17 when I saw them,
right,
as they would have been, back in the day.
Yeah. Sure.
And for example, my second example of this on the opposite end of the spectrum, a band that, when I lived in New Jersey and would go to shows all the time in New York and stuff, I've probably seen Tool 7 or 8 times.
Right.
And they used to be amazing. I saw a Perfect Circle, when they first came out, amazing live show. In the last 4-5 years, I've seen Tool and A Perfect Circle both, and was extremely disappointed.
Really?
No.
I think that Maynard is over it, maybe. I don't know. That's my opinion.
He became a wine snob.
I just feel like he's over it. And then a friend of mine just went and saw Tool in Birmingham for their, where they announced their new album and everything like that. And he was extremely disappointed as well. So my question is, why do you think some bands burn out and others still have that same fucking fire that they had in the beginning?
Great question.
Well, you know what? That could be, he could have personal issues going on that affect his overall, demeanor. Tool really, I don't think toured. They weren't a band that was touring every year for 30 years or something. They came out, did stuff, went away, whatever.
Yeah.
They also could be doing it monetarily. Maybe they need money and they're kind of begrudgingly doing it. I don't know. But I would say that doing too much of anything at any point could burn you out. You're in a band. You're not doing it yourself. You have to deal with other personalities. So there's a lot that goes on with that. But as far as him, just not being into it, that could be, like I said, they could be either doing it for money reasons, because maybe he made money at once and spent it all, and now they got to do it again, and he really doesn't want to do it.
Right.
There are people that quit bands because they don't want to tour. They literally don't like being on the road and being away from a family or whatever. But, I would say ultimately doing anything too much, you're going to burn out. It's just, I go into work every day. You need a vacation. You can't work 7 days a week.
Yeah.
You have to have time off.
Right.
So it's the same thing for music. And music, you're on a friggin', if you're on tour, you're on a bus or in a van with a bunch of smelly guys, depending at the level you're at, it could be like, you're having bologna sandwiches on your hand,
Right, yeah. The sketch could be bad.
I would say that, even with rehearsals, you're right about burning out. Even rehearsing once a week, doing the same songs over and over. It's just like, you know what? We really don't have, if we don't know these songs by now, playing them,
Right.
Same group of guys for the last couple of years with this lineup, we're never going to know them. So you got to learn when to step away a little bit and
Agreed.
give everybody some room to live. Otherwise, the whole thing's going to fall apart.
Yeah,
Yep.
I like that. I like that because you can keep up the energy, you can keep the creative juices flowing, but only for so long until, like you said, burnt out. So I think it is okay to take a break. Absolutely. No matter what job or artistic avenue you're involved in.
You need it. You have to have it. What we're going to be doing going forward now, we have 2 more shows. We're probably not even going to play a live show till maybe sometime next year. We're just going to get together and start working on new material for like a future, a new album.
Yeah.
And most of the time that was always problematic for us because we only do rehearse once a week. So we would have to be either in songwriting mode or rehearsal mode. Right. Just to make sure everything's firing on the right cylinders. So now we're just going to go into working on songs. And again, if we miss a rehearsal because somebody couldn't make it, no big deal. No, we don't have to worry about shows. We don't have to worry about set lists and all that stuff. We can. I said in the last couple of years, Joe knows we've done quite a bit of playing a lot of these things. Again, when people have families and jobs, you can only take off so much time, so that stresses people out. Even though the trips are fun, you can't keep pulling people away from life.
Yeah.
Now we said we've done a lot. Let's just take a break. Let's just work on songs at our leisure. We'll get them done when we get them done, and we can all get back to a little normalcy. And then by the time we come back and play again or want to play live, we're going to be all excited to do it.
Yeah, you're going to be rested, refreshed. You're going to have a new perspective, new music. That's awesome.
Exactly. To me, that's the best way to do it because I'm burnt out already. We just went to Massachusetts, and I was like, even though it's only like a 3.5-hour drive, I was like, it's like I'd rather be home on the couch watching TV.
You got jet lag from you weren't even in a plane. You got jet lag, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, once you get there and you're ready to play, it's fun. But the whole idea, I got to get there and I got to drive home the next day. It's just like
that's the worst. The driving
shows you that you need a break. It's time for everybody to just kind of decompress and let's get back to it being completely just fun and no pressure, Well,
that's what people don't see, Mike. A lot of people don't understand that, a lot of these gigs in the States, people would drive to, bands would drive to.
Yes.
And you're in a truck for 7, 8 hours, 10 hours, and it is taxing. It really is.
No, it is. We're not in our 20s anymore, man.
No, we're old farts now, you know what I mean?
When you're kids, you don't care. I'm practically a senior citizen.
Oh my God! You get your discount at Denny's.
Well, technically, I think 55 and over, and I just turned 56. You literally could go and get a discount. They consider that senior. So
do you remember we went for cheeseburgers at that diner? I think we both pulled out an ARP card at the same fucking time.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, holy shit! I remember being like 20 with 12-pack on my shoulder, going to a gig and shit. I'm not an ARP card. Here you go. I want the discount cheeseburger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. We're at that point.
We're at that point, baby.
Oh my God!
I'll tell you what, Mike. I'll tell you what. I've been behind you watching you play. You've been behind me watching me play. And I'm telling you what, we can still fucking get out there and thunder it live. You're a fucking monster. You've always been an inspiration to me as a drummer and as a person. I've had the privilege of talking to you.
I could say the same thing about you.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Well, Joe and I have good conversations about just the life of being in a band and and knowing how to navigate things. Right, Joe?
Don't let him bullshit you. We were stuck in an airport, and I fucking followed him like a puppy for like 4 hours.
That's typically what Joe does anyway, though. He just follows you around until you start talking to him.
Will you talk to me? God damn it, talk to me.
I kept saying, go away, kid, you bother me.
He's calling for he didn't know how to say security in Scandinavian, so he's just like, hey, this guy, right? No, they didn't do it. That's magic with him, they didn't want to mess with that. No, Mike and I, we got lost in an airport for 2 hours, and we ended up eating gummy bears, chocolate bars, and cheeseburgers, and had 48-hour talk, and it was priceless. It was. And Mike, the memories I had with you in the clubs, in the scene, out of the scene, in the diners, and whatever else is priceless to me.
Exactly.
You and Attacker are absolutely one of the greatest metal bands out there, and I don't give a shit what anybody else thinks. You guys are absolutely pinnacle. You should be put up there in the top fucking 10 with anything that's out there. You've always been an inspiration to me, and I'm privileged. Stevie and I are very privileged.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that, man. Like I said, so it's we love what we do, and that's all it comes down to, man. The fact that people enjoy it is even a bigger plus. Because even if they didn't, we'd still probably play and piss people off anyways.
Yeah, fuck yeah, you got to. If that's what you want to do, you do it. Whether people fucking like it or they hate it, whatever. Like I said, when somebody sent Joe that burned piece of paper, I was like, that's such a goddamn compliment. Like, how I wish somebody would send me a burned piece of paper.
I was crushed.
And he had to pay postage from Europe for that.
I know, right? That's insane.
We were all sitting in a circle looking at going, this guy paid to do this, you know.
Joe, that's love, buddy. Let me tell you.
That's right there, baby.
Yeah.
Hey, the burning guy, thank you very much. I feel that love, baby. I'm with you.
All
right.
Bye-bye.
We are about out of time, and I just want to say thank you very much, Mike, for joining us on episode 27 of Horror Metal Cast. Real quick before we go off air, do you have anything that you would like to plug, or any websites or anything that you'd like people to visit?
You can go on check out Attacker. You can go look at actually, let's say Attacker website. Oh, it's attackermetal.com. I have to think about that. You can check us out on Facebook /Attacker Band, and also look up my studio. It's www.bandmotherrecording.com, all one word. And anybody out there in the vicinity, or if you're not in the vicinity, want to come record, get a great sounding record, demo, whatever, you know, sing a songwriter, whatever it is, come on and check it out. Good rates and good atmosphere to do it in.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. Are you so just to let people know, what area of the state are you in?
I'm in Northern Jersey. The studio is actually in Jersey City.
There you go. Perfect. So guys, check out Mike's studio in Jersey City.
Yep,
and there you go. I put it in the chat too. I put your website and the band's website as well.
Stevie is absolutely priceless. She is an amazing author too. She's got great books out, horror books that I'm going to be sending away soon. So you can read them too. Yeah, she's awesome. But I look at the people I get to hang out with, and you guys never tell me to go away or hit me with a stick.
Don't worry, Joe.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
All right, guys. Well, thank you everybody that tuned in tonight, and for all the people in the chat and everyone listening either live or after the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like this video, share it, and subscribe. Right. And as always, check out horrormetalsounds.com, your one-stop shop for horror and metal. Take it easy, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
Peace out. Love you guys. Mwah.